This conference will now be recorded.
2020. I'd like to call this evening's virtual city council meeting to order. If we could all please say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag
States
of the United
States of America,
to the
to
republic
the republic
which
for which it
stands
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
and
with
liberty
liberty, justice for all.
Could I have the roll call?
Councilmember Boff,
Here.
Councilmember Stimmel.
Here.
Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Williams.
You're muted, Randy.
I bet
Randy, you're muted, Randy.
I'll send him an audio pin.
Okay.
Randy, I've just sent one for you.
He said color one, she said, but maybe not. His name's in there.
Councilmember Williams.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm dialed in, and when you muted all the outside lines, that cut me off.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Strobehn.
Here.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Here.
Mayor Thornton.
Present. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. If there are no requests for any items to be removed, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we do have a presentation this evening. It's the interlocal agreement for the historic preservation. And Mr. Jeff Swanson will be presenting that to the council this evening. Jeff?
Good evening, council. You have before you this evening an agreement, and I'll have to beg for a little bit of forbearance here. I'm pitch hitting for another staff member on our team, but this is an interlocal agreement between Clark County and all the cities in the county concerning the cultural and historic resources and preservation of those. And it is a 10-year agreement, and it outlines the structure of a commission, historic preservation commission between the county and the city of Vancouver, and to review any proposals to impact properties that are on the county's historical register. And this is a continuation of a prior arrangement between the county and all the cities in the county. So in terms of the any substantive changes between the last interlocal agreement and what you have before you, I don't believe that there are many. It basically covers the same functions as before. And I'll do the best I can to answer any questions that you might have. I know that our city attorney, Bronson Potter, is also on tonight, and maybe he can attempt to answer some of those questions as well.
And Jeff, this is Maria, and I'm here, and I can help answer questions as well.
Hi there, Maria. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. This interlocal agreement is before the council right now. We're looking for adoption of this council. Bronson, is just a vote needed on this?
Yes, Mayor. Interlocal agreements are required to be approved by the legislative bodies of the parties to the agreement. So we will need a vote on it. And as you've done in the past, probably a roll call vote is the best way to proceed in a virtual meeting.
Very good. So if there aren't any questions or comments on this interlocal agreement, if I could please get a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement by and between Clark County, the cities of Camas, Washougal, Ridgefield, La Center, Battleground, Vancouver, and the town of Yakov concerning cultural and historic resources.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement by and between Clark County, the cities of Camas, Washougal, Ridgefield, La Center, Battleground, Vancouver, and the town of Yakult concerning cultural and historic resources. Clerk, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
Yes.
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes.
Thank you.
The interlocal agreement is adopted unanimously by council. Thank you, council. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you stepping up and taking care of that tonight. Next on the agenda is the mayor's report. Just a couple things this evening. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Cerveny for filling in for me these past 4 weeks in my absence. I really appreciate everything that she's done to assist the city, keeping everything moving along. And I know she probably has somewhat of a sore wrist from all the documents she needs to sign and what have you, but thank you very much, Liz. And I also want to thank the city staff for their continued excellent work and dedication to the city of La Center. I know in my absence that everything was attended to and in good hands. So I really appreciate that. And I want to give a special thanks to Janice Corbin as well. Janice really stepped up and assisted Maria with her onboarding and kept things going as well in the city. So it's great to be back. And again, I just want to thank everybody for their support and kind words while I've been gone. So I really appreciate it. And then just the other item that I do want to mention is last month, a letter was drafted to Jerry Sawyer on behalf of the card rooms, a letter to the governor's office requesting some special consideration for the card rooms to remain open in phase 3. Unfortunately, as of now, as of the end of July, both the La Center card rooms have been closed again and will be closed until further notice from the governor's office. But just wanted to mention that to the council as well. That's all I have this evening. Next on the agenda is the attorney's report. Bronson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and citizens. The ban on in-person public meetings is continued. The latest extension continues that ban until September 1st. Also extended is certain waivers to the Public Records Act, specifically the requirement to make records available for in-person inspection and copying. That was also extended until September 1st. And then the ban on rental evictions, residential rental evictions and rent increases has been extended to October 15. So I think this is now the 7th modification of the original proclamation issued by the governor on open public meetings and public records. And we will see what develops up to September 1st. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the attorney this evening, counsel? Okay. Thank you. I apologize, but I did skip over the citizens' public comment. Clerk, do we have any comments from the citizens this evening?
No, we do not.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next will be council member comments. Councilmember Boff.
Thank you, Mayor. Since our last council meeting, the C-Tran Board of Directors has had 2 meetings. On July 31st, the Board of Directors called a special meeting to discuss the City of Vancouver's request to extend the agreement that was originally approved on June 10. This agreement had to deal with the temporary parking space at Evergreen Park and Ride, and the space was used to accommodate unhoused citizens living in their vehicles. The new agreement expires at the end of December, or possibly sooner, depending on the status of Washington State's Stay Home, Stay Healthy order. And the board did approve that agreement extension. The regular August meeting was held last night. There were 2 significant action items taken up. In the first one, the Board of Directors approved CEO Sean Donaghy's request to purchase a 5.7-acre property abutting C-Tran's maintenance and operations facility. The property includes a 7,100 square foot building. Future purchase of the property was originally included in the maintenance facility expansion project proposal, which was approved back in December. The board also authorized CEO Donaghy to sign a letter of understanding with the Oregon Department of Transportation. The letter will address issues associated with traffic mitigation during the September closure of the interstate bridge. And 2 other items, CEO Donaghy announced that ridership is beginning to increase. In July, the ridership was down 45% from the same month a year ago. It's a big number, but it's also a big improvement because in April, the ridership was down 55% compared with April of 2019. Sean also mentioned, though, that that 45% that the ridership is the lowest decrease in ridership of all the mid-sized transit agencies in Washington State. And he also announced that the I-5 Bus on Shoulder project is on schedule to meet the September 12th through 20th Interstate Bridge trunnion shaft replacement project. And that's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Great report, Doug. Any questions for Councilmember Boff? Okay. Councilmember Stimmel.
No comments tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Strobehn.
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
And Councilmember Cerveny.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out, I learned a little bit more information today in an earlier meeting that COVID cases are continuing to appear and they're spreading out into this area in North County. So just wanted to encourage everyone to please practice the social distancing, wear your masks, be cautious, take all the precautions you possibly can to keep yourself, your families, and your community safe and healthy. That's all, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, next on the agenda are staff reports. We do have 2 staff reports this evening. The first one will be presented by Chief Denny. Chief?
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah, fine, Chief. Yep, you're good.
Good evening. This report covers the month of July. We had calls for service. We had 175 calls total, with 38 of which were officer generated or proactive calls. Criminal arrests, we had 11 arrests total, 7 traffic-related arrests, 1 drug-related arrest, 1 assault arrest, 1 restraining order violation arrest, and 1 criminal trespass arrest. Reports generated were 42, written reports with 28 original reports and 14 being supplemental reports to cases. Police contacts, we had 133 field entries completed for any activity that did not result in a report or issuance of a civil citation or infraction. There were 74 traffic stops total made in the city of Citizen complaints received. We had traffic complaints were received for North Fork of the Lewis River for watercraft moving along the waterway. We received multiple complaints. However, this is not a violation, and we're doing our best to educate residents. Watercraft are allowed to move along the northern fork of the Lewis River under 30 miles per hour. The area of the Lewis River that passes through the center is a no-wake zone and is enforced by the Clark County Sheriff's Office. We were told that they may be able to provide some support in patrolling occasionally through there, but they don't have anything planned yet. Additionally, the traffic speed trailer was deployed in the following locations for continued speed mitigation. At the 1600 block of Aspen for 8 days, the 600 block of Aspen for 4 days, and then the 700 block of East 4th Street for 8 days. Traffic emphasis was focused in the following locations. Northwest 319th Street, the 2800 block for licensing violations. We had some reports of vehicles not being licensed properly and parked on the street. Northwest La Center Road, 1800 block with speed emphasis. Northwest Pacific Highway, the 1500 block, speed emphasis. And Northwest Lockwood Creek Road, 1800 block and 2400 block for speed emphasis. Community-oriented policing on the 4th of July celebrations within the city were conducted without incident. Only a few minor complaints were generated regarding fireworks. Educating public about fireworks safety and La Center Municipal Code was priority for the La Center Police Department. Enforcement action was taken during this time. We had one significant high-risk call for service resulting from a Black Lives Matter incident. On 7/26/2020 at approximately 14:51 hours, LCPD officer conducted a traffic stop of a vehicle traveling at 74 miles per hour on Northwest La Center Road. The officer contacted the driver at the Shell parking lot, 2814 Northwest 319th Street, and advised the driver of the reason for the stop. As the officer was returning to his vehicle, 2 vehicles approached and blocked the officer's patrol vehicle from the rear and side. One of the vehicles had in large black letters, Black Lives Matter, painted across the trunk of the vehicle. The occupants of the 2 vehicles, approximately 8 individuals, approached the officer and began to berate him and law enforcement in general, using vulgar language and advising the officer he had no right to stop the vehicle or the person of color operating. While filming, they became more aggressive in their demeanor and demands that he break off the illegal traffic stop and leave. Due to safety concerns, the officer called for additional units to respond. The officer's supervisor arrived, as well as Richfield PD supervisor, and provided the officer a safer environment to complete his traffic stop. Responding agencies, we had La Center Police Department, 1 sergeant and 1 officer on scene, 1 Richfield Police Officer Sergeant on scene. Total time invested in the stop was 2 hours, including officer debrief, investigation, and training. Disposition of the call: the driver of the vehicle was cited for speed 24 miles per hour over the posted speed limit and driving while his license is suspended in the 1st degree. The Black Lives Matter activists were issued a verbal warning by the supervisor not to interfere with the traffic stop or they would be charged with obstruction. They were informed they could film the traffic stop, but they were to keep their distance and would not be allowed to delay or obstruct the officer. This traffic stop is being identified as a high-risk call due to the activists misdemeanor behavior and the potential for the incident to escalate into a physical confrontation. At this time, there's nothing to support that the driver in any way knew the activist. The driver was a person of color. However, this had no bearing on the traffic stop itself. Throughout the traffic stop, the driver was very respectful and compliant with the officer, as the officer was respectful with the driver as well. It is clear that the intention of the BLM activist was to intimidate the officer into ending the traffic stop and leaving the area. It is believed that the traffic stop was targeted by the group. However, it's also believed that this was a target of opportunity, not a premeditated incident. This constitutes the LSPD's first confrontational interaction with aggressive activists. The incident has served as an awareness tool in training the officers for potential future incidents, as well as how they can operate more safely and confronted in a similar manner, if confronted in a similar manner. Talking with Clark County Sheriff's Office, Ridgefield Police Department, and the other areas, other departments in our area, no one else has had any encounters other than us on this one event. So seems like it's staying over in Portland for the most part. This was just an isolated incident. And the rest of the report basically just outlines all of the contacts and information that I already kind of presented to you all. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything you may have.
Chief, were the individuals involved from the area or?
No, they were not. No one was identified to being from the area. They were. It was filmed by the group, and it was also posted. And their intention basically is they try to get the officers information and name. That's one of the concerns by the sergeant was there, because they were adamant to filming everybody and their name tags on their uniforms. Don't know for what account, but then it gets their information online for the rest of the group to know who's who and what they're doing out there. So, but no, that group was not from the area. And whether they were frequenting the Alani, we don't know either.
I had just heard in a news article, I think it was just earlier this week, that a number of individuals involved in the rioting and were coming from out of town, some as far as back east, and so I was just curious.
I think a lot of the incidents going on in Portland, those are outsiders as well. They're not actual Portlanders that are actually involved in the protesting. Right. Well, not so much the protesting, but the illegal activity that's going on is mostly from outsiders.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no excuse for doing 74 miles an hour on that road.
Any other questions or comments for the chief this evening?
Thank you, Chief. Stay safe out there.
Yep. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
I've noticed the black Tahoe sitting along the road. That's nice too.
So the next staff report we have this evening is the Public Works staff report, and Matt Jenkins will be presenting. Matt?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens. I'd like to present the work staff report for August. I'll start with Public Works operations. Some of this is routine and repeated throughout my report, so I'll just breeze over that. Public Works continues to monitor and repair city streets and right-of-ways and look out for road hazards to make sure citizens aren't running over, obstacles that fall out of trucks or the back of construction vehicles as construction is at a high. The community center play structures and restrooms throughout town remain closed. The city will review closures at as the county approaches phase 3 for COVID. Part of the reason for this is just those are high concentration areas with a lot of contact points, and we think it best to avoid those. As was stated earlier, cases are on the rise and they're starting to migrate out to North County, and so we think at this point during phase 2 we'll just leave those shut, and we'll revisit those in phase 3. That also includes the water feature at Holly Park. Maintenance staff has continued to provide janitorial service for City Hall and community development offices. I don't foresee reopening janitorial until we open back up to the public. So just to keep those offices isolated, sanitized, and keep contact low for transmission, we're going to do in-house janitorial for the time being and continue to do so. Citywide street sweeping will be conducted on 8/19/2020. We'll do the main arterials, and then we'll also assess neighborhoods and look for some opportunities there to hit some areas that haven't been hit in a while. On the parks and grounds side, mowing still at a summer schedule. Staff continues to clear trails, repair split rail fence, clear paths, and just prepare for high use in the nicer weather, which is fall. Right now, while it's super hot, people tend to migrate to more of the river, but as temperatures cool, we'll get higher use in those trails as well. So Battleground and Clark County work crews still remain unavailable. What they are doing, we're not part of currently, if they are, and the amount of people they can send out currently is such a low level, it's just not worth the trade-off for the city at this time. On the equipment side, preventative and scheduled maintenance is still ongoing. Staff is looking into updating the decals on the city public vehicles. Aaron Wilkerson has been working on some of this, and we've just got a new JPEG that's a lot cleaner done, so we'll be able to get that to the decal shop and hopefully get all the public works vehicles uniformly decaled. So looking forward to that. On the personnel side, currently all staff are working normal shifts. All appropriate safety precautions are being followed, and they continue to mask up in social settings, but they are continuing to socially distance and follow protocols. On the project side, the Holly Park concession stand stairs have progressed. It's been demoed out. The damage was a little more significant to the concession stand than we originally anticipated. We actually had to go into the concession stand wall a little bit, take out some of the siding and some of the backboard, but that's been done. And staff will be putting the upper landing, the stairs, and the lower section next. Completion is estimated to be in mid to late September. Pardon me. On the wastewater operations side, the plant continues to run well within its MPDS permit. Biosolids processing is still at normal levels. ALNA is still every other week, but we do expect them to start sending biosolids loads on a weekly basis as their plant builds up after their shutdown. Maintenance side, routine preventative maintenance is always going on. It's the nature of the beast. Washington Crane has begun to repair the 6-ton gantry crane at the wastewater treatment plant. You see it, it's not against the wall when you go by, it's out towards the edge of the upper deck. We'll be replacing, we have a brake and a motor on order. We're waiting for that in. Lead times right now with COVID-19 are extended. So we're waiting for that motor to come in, and then they'll be out to do a full inspection and then also refurbish that section of the drive unit. On the admin side, the August DMR is in progress. It's actually done. It'll be submitted tomorrow. Staff's currently working regular shifts, but maintaining social distancing practices in the lab and other contained areas. Office and lab sanitation frequencies remained increased due to COVID-19. The NPDS permit renewal application materials are currently being consolidated and the application is being prepared. That's going to be due September 1st. So we are all hands on that one right now. And there are currently no projects. And then for the building department, permitting and construction are moving forward. They've stayed strong. Staff is conducting an average of 12 to 15 stops per day, resulting in 25 to 45 inspections per day. I had 16 building applications and 9 permits issued, and that was as of Thursday of last week when I submitted this. But as of today, a week later, I need to find it here, bear with me. We are looking at, for July, 17 applications and 12 permitted. So it has gone up that much just in a few days. The Riverside apartment plans their review is complete. The building official is waiting on revised plans for his comments. The La Center School District Middle School mechanical plans are currently under review. Plumbing and building permits have been issued, so those plans are done. Inspections will be performed if the builder is meeting the criteria set by the state. That hasn't changed with COVID, so we still will follow those protocols. And then all staff are back in the office full time. No one in Public Works is currently working from home, but we have proper social distancing policies in place. Any questions?
That's a great report, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see y'all.
Thank you, Matt. Good report. The next item this evening on the agenda is the Hung Lockwood annexation, the intent to annex. And this evening, Ethan Spool, the consulting planner for the city, will be presenting to the council. Good evening, Ethan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry, I had to take myself off mute there. Good to see all of you, even if it is still virtually. So Tony and I will be talking to you tonight about the Hung Lockwood Creek annexation. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the property that we're talking about here tonight is, again, the Hung property. It's a 20-acre property that's located the city's eastern extent along Lockwood Creek Road. The annexation process is pretty prescriptive as laid out in state law. There's different types of annexation processes, and the type that we're talking about with you tonight is called the direct petition method. And that's kind of broken out into two different parts. You might remember from previous annexations that have come before you. There's a 10% petition, which is also called a notice of intent to annex, and that's what we're here to talk to you about tonight. And then there's also a 60% petition. The purpose of the 10% petition is really just to authorize the applicant to move forward and gather signatures for the 60% petition. I do want to be clear that you're not being asked to consider or approve an annexation tonight. This is just whether you will accept, reject, or geographically modify this particular annexation to move forward to the next stage. So the first part of the 10% annexation process is that the applicant submits the petition, and then within 60 days, the city council is required to hold a meeting with the applicants, and that's what this meeting is here today. The 60 days expires on August 23. Hang on while I advance slides here. So this is an aerial photo of the property that you see there in front of you. Again, it's a 20-acre piece. To the north of it is the Heritage Country Estates subdivision, and then to the south over here is where the new middle school is being constructed. The property is currently in Clark County, obviously, and so it's zoned R1 7.5 by Clark County with an urban holding overlay. The comprehensive plan designation, because it is within the city's urban growth area, the comprehensive plan designation is urban residential with an urban holding overlay. And that urban holding overlay is really just intended to apply and limit the density on the site until the developer can demonstrate that adequate public facilities exist. So I mentioned that whether to approve or not the annexation is not really the question before you tonight. What you're being asked to consider are three specific issues that you see in front of you on the screen. And those three issues are whether the city will accept, reject, or geographically modify the proposed annexation. And so the next couple of slides in the presentation here will talk to you about that specific criteria. And then the second one is whether the city will require the simultaneous adoption of a proposed zoning designation. It's really typical, very common that cities apply a zoning designation at the time of annexation. And so that's just sort of standard annexation procedure, and that would happen when the annexation is finalized. And then a final criteria is whether the city will require the assumption of all or any portion of the existing city indebtedness by the area to be annexed. And so that's essentially just saying if the city has any general obligation bonds or other debt that's out there now or in the future, that this annexation area would be required to assume its share of that debt, just like any other property that's within the city.
Ethan, are you speaking? If you are, I'm not able to hear you. I don't know if you've got muted or what.
Mayor Thornton, I think his computer's frozen or something's going on with that.
Okay. It doesn't show that he's muted on the screen, so, but we've lost him.
So Mayor, maybe I can fill in for Ethan until he joins us again. As he was explaining, this notice of intent, the first step of an annexation procedure, presents the council with really what's a policy decision as to whether or not to accept this annexation proposal as presented, or whether to geographically modify the proposal. In this case, you've got the petition covering the 20 acres shown in a previous slide. There's 3 parcels to the south that are not included in this annexation proposal that are within the urban growth area of the city. Ethan, are you coming back?
Yeah, I'm back. I apologize. I lost internet momentarily there. Truly sorry for that. I think we've all probably been through that in the last number of months.
No problem. I just explained the ability to modify geographical area while you were out. So, okay. And it explained about the 3 parcels to the south. But other than that, just go ahead and pick up where you were.
Right. So what I was saying was that in analyzing this annexation petition, staff looked at the comprehensive plan policies as well as the code. There's a couple of comprehensive plan policies that we wanted to call out for your focus here tonight. Policy 8.2.5 directs the city to have an interjurisdictional process for analyzing fiscal impacts. And so it's pretty common in other jurisdictions in Clark County as well as across the state of Washington that cities require the applicant at the 60% annexation stage to file what's called a fiscal impact analysis. And that really just, you're probably familiar with the idea of fiscal impacts from other council items, but that really just sort of weighs the revenues and costs of annexation against each other to see where the city's going to come out after the property is annexed and developed, and the city is providing services to that property. And so we have an optional motion for council tonight to require the applicant to prepare a fiscal impact analysis in recognition of this policy. And then it sounds like Bronson spoke with you about geographically modifying the annexation. We did reach out to the other property owners that are in the vicinity here south of the Hung property. You can see there's 3 of those properties right there. And the reason that we did that was, number one, we just wanted to see if those property owners were interested in being annexed at this time, because if they could be grouped and annexed in this same annexation, that would obviously be a process efficiency for them and for the city and getting them included. We did connect with 2 of those property owners, Hornsby and Murug, and they said that they were not interested in annexation at this time. And so that resulted in a recommendation and a motion that we have for you, that the annexation not be geographically modified. And the main reason for that is because it would take at least 2 of these other 3 properties here to reach the 60%. So if these property owners do not want to be annexed, then the Hung property by itself probably couldn't achieve the 60% of assessed value at a later stage. So I had mentioned that we analyzed the code, the annexation proposal against the code as well. And so just kind of looking forward to the 60% petition process, the code requires that the applicant demonstrate that there's public facilities available to serve the property that are either constructed or planned for and funded. And so we took a look at what public facilities are out there, and we have sort of a summary of that for you. And I'm going to turn it over to Tony at this point. And Tony, you can just let me know when you want to advance slides.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you, Tony.
Okay. So water, for water, Clark Public Utilities was contacted about the availability of water to this parcel, and currently there's no water service. There is, I believe, water line stub from the subdivision, just north of there. So there is possibility of connecting in there, but one of the things that CPU did say is booster pump station at the southeast corner of the site that needs to be updated or upgraded in order to get the flow, I believe, for the development. So that would be a requirement of them, and they would have to look into that in more depth, but that's one of the first things that they said. So it's feasible, the water, in other words, there is water service, but there needs to be some upgrades possibly to obtain the pressure and the flow. For sewer, there's currently no sewer to the site. There is a sewer stub to the west in the subdivision to the west, which is Heritage Country Estates. And it's possible they could gravity flow in from the site to that sewer. However, this parcel, as well as the 3 to the south that aren't annexed yet, the school property south of Lockwood Creek Road, and another parcel just to the east of that, are part of a basin that was identified in the general sewer plan to be served by a pump station. So since the school is, what part of the requirements of the school is that they have a pump station because it's located at the low point of their property, which is where the pump station needs to go. So since the school is building that pump station, this parcel is in that basin. Theoretically, they need to connect to that, but there's no sewer stub to the property. So one of the things is they would have to connect a main from their property south to connect to this pump station if they want to be part of that system. So there is adequate facilities once the pump station is built, but the applicant will have to look into that. So I guess the summary is that there is adequate facilities available for to serve this parcel. So connection, as part of the Heritage Country Estates, there are some streets stubbed to the south or to the north of this parcel that was built with that subdivision. And they likely will have to extend these dead end streets to the parcel to get access. Now, there likely won't be able to be a connection to Lockwood Creek Road because the next intersection to the west, I believe, is Spruce. I can't recall, but there's an intersection in Heritage Country Estates that connects directly to Lockwood Creek Road. And the distance between that intersection and the parcel length along Lockwood Creek Road is just over 300 feet, which that does not meet our recommended standards for requirements for a minimum width or distance between intersections per our capital facilities plan. So, but they will have to look at the access, and there are some connections points that can be made to some streets. Let's see. Other services, school impact fees will have to be collected as part of during the time of building permit issuances. And if more than 40 units are proposed, the applicant would have to provide a public park space, and Ethan can talk about that some more. So that's all I have on the public facilities.
Thanks, Tony. So as Tony said, if this proceeds forward and this property is annexed and then the applicant applies for a subdivision, the property would have to provide park space if it's over 40 units, and that's in accordance with the city's code at a certain ratio. So that would help offset their impact on park facilities as well. So then
Ethan, real quick,
yes.
Is there any implications of or any problems with the wetland that was found on it? Is that going to cause any problems with development?
Well, so it's pretty typical that properties in the center have wetlands on them, pretty typical all around the county. And so when the applicant, assuming that the property is annexed, when it comes, when the applicant comes in for a subdivision application, that wetland would have to be delineated, and the critical areas ordinance generally doesn't allow that, wouldn't allow that wetland to be impacted unless it's mitigated for and it's an unavoidable impact in some way. So it's pretty typical that there's wetlands on properties in the center on properties that are being developed, and so the applicant would just have to apply for critical areas permits if there's any impact to the wetland or the buffer, or stay completely out of the wetland and buffer. But as of right now, we don't know exactly what the boundaries or the size of that wetland are.
Okay, thanks, Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan, you also outlined the geologically hazardous area for steep slopes and such.
Mm-hmm.
taking into consideration that in addition to the wetlands, what is your kind of projection in terms of estimate on actual buildable land?
Well, I mean, there is buildable land there. And so you probably noticed, you know, in your council packet, which is what you're talking about, that we noted that there is geologically hazardous areas and wetlands, and there's also an unnamed creek. I mean, all of those things are not uncommon in the center, and developers in general are used to delineating those areas and respecting them. And if for some reason those areas have to be impacted, which obviously isn't the preference, but if they have to be impacted in some way, then they get a professional report for the steep slopes and the seismically hazardous areas. They would complete a geotechnical report, and that would tell them how close they could build to steep slopes or geologically hazardous areas. And if they are building in those areas, it would propose mitigations. You know, a real common mitigation is placing structural fill in those areas. So that doesn't answer your question exactly, but we think that, you know, there's definitely buildable area there. How much is yet to be determined based upon these future studies that are completed at the time of subdivision.
The reason I posed the question was more linked to whether it made more sense to consider medium density versus low density for that particular area.
Mm-hmm. Well, so one of the things that will happen in the 60% annexation stage is staff will take a closer look at the zoning, the urban residential designation that would be applied to it at the time of annexation. The urban residential comprehensive plan designation allows for either low density or medium density zoning to be applied to the site. And so when we, you know, assuming this annexation proceeds forward to the next step, to the 60% petition, we would analyze zoning in greater depth, including looking at where the city's at in terms of building out its housing and meeting its goals that it's established in the comprehensive plan. But medium density certainly would be a consideration, as well as low density.
Okay, thank you, Ethan.
Mm-hmm. So if there's no other questions on that, we have a series of recommendations and motions for you in your council packet tonight. The first one that I touched on a little bit earlier is that we're recommending that the council accept the hung Lockwood notice of intent to annex without geographically modifying it. Council could choose to geographically modify it if you saw fit, but we're not recommending that based upon those other three property owners not seeming interested in it at this point. And we're also recommending that you require the simultaneous adoption of city zoning at the time of annexation, and again, that zoning would be specified at the time of annexation down the road. And we're also recommending that you require the assumption of the property share of all existing city indebtedness, again, is a pretty common requirement with annexations. So those are the three main recommendations we have for you tonight. There's some alternative recommendations and motions here having to do with geographically modifying to include those other three properties. And for the indebtedness issue, this basically just changes it from that one property to all of the property owners. And then the final recommendation we have for you is optional recommendation is regarding that fiscal impact analysis that I spoke about, and requiring the applicant to prepare that. And so they would bring that in. If you do choose to require that, they would bring that in at the 60% annexation stage, and we would share that with you in terms of what they're projecting is the impact on revenues and costs to the city. So that's all we have for you tonight in terms of the presentation. Happy to answer any more questions. I think that there's somebody on the line from PLS Engineering that may want to speak to the issue just a little bit, representing the applicant. And I'm assuming they would also be available for questions. Thank you.
Ethan, I do have one more question, and it might be for Tony. Didn't the MRUG have a proposal previously for development and then pulled it back?
I'm not sure about the MRUG property, but I know that this parcel, the Hung property, was owned by somebody else previously, and they submitted an application for a pre-application for some development. And I think that disappeared. That's the only one I remember, unless there's one that Ethan can remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, not since I've been consulting for the city, but I remember hearing about a previous proposal for the Hung property.
Okay, any other questions, Council, for Ethan before we turn it over to PLS Engineering? Okay, Ethan, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jason Taylor with PLS Engineering, representing the applicant Susanna Hung. We agree with the staff report that was prepared by city staff. We believe that all the required facilities will be able to be worked out so that development can happen on this parcel. So we're not worried about that. We ask that City Council accept our petition. Regarding the options associated with this process, we'd ask that the geographic boundary not be modified. It would make it significantly more difficult for this parcel to be annexed if the other three parcels are included. The 60% petition is based on, the way I understand it's based on taxable value. And the Hung property is actually one of the lowest valued properties out of the four, even though it accounts for 66% of the land in that urban growth boundary. So the parcel that we're asking to be annexed holds a large portion of the development potential of that urban growth boundary, and we don't think that it should be left out because of parcels that have greater land value because of the homes on the sites. Regarding the optional condition, regarding the fiscal impact analysis, it's not something I've done before. While it's something that we could figure out, I would think that the fiscal analysis would be more appropriate when a larger area is associated with annexation. And also, I would assume that the city has a pretty good hold on the fiscal impacts of low density development. There's a lot of development in this similar zone that should give data regarding the taxable income that's generated by this type of development, and if and when development occurs, we will be paying for all the applicable impact fees for traffic, for school, for parks, SDC fees associated with utility construction and hooking up. So we would ask that City Council not require that fiscal impact analysis. So there were a few questions about the development potential of the land. We have done some studies, looked into the wetlands. There are wetlands and a creek that does come onto the property. And while we don't have a development plan nailed down, I think we will be in the area of that 40 or 50 lot count that would require a public park in the center of our development. So we would plan on installing a park with the development when that occurs. Regarding the higher density, we think that for this area, the LDR 7.5 zone will match the adjacent community better than the higher density zoning. So we would ask, or not that it matters at this point in the process, but at the 60% petition, we would want to keep the LDR 7.5 zone and not try to go for a higher density. You know, to the north, to the west, development has already occurred, so we would be looking to match that type of development. And I guess in summary, we agree with everything that the staff report says, and ask for City Council to approve the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the Engineers Council? Okay. So, as I understand it, Ethan, what we have here are 3 motions that will need to be made.
That's correct.
For A, B, and C, and then potentially 4 if D is considered by the council.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a question on this.
Sure.
As far as the second motion, I'd like a little more clarification on whether we should make a decision to adopt the zoning at the time of annexation approval. Since this property can go either medium or low density, is it wise to make that kind of decision tonight?
Well, so those, Councilmember Boff, those 3 motions that you see in front of you and are required to be decided on by council tonight at the 60-day meeting under state law. And so this isn't requesting a specific type of zoning. It's just saying that the applicant would be required to apply city zoning simultaneous to annexation, which is pretty typical with any annexation. I mean, it would probably be a rare circumstance when you wouldn't apply city zoning at the time of annexation. And so really what this is doing is it's paving the way for, you know, if the annexation application does move forward, it's paving the way for it to be annexed and zoned appropriately at the same time.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
So does the fiscal impact analysis, does that cover fire and police impact with the annexation and development of this land? Would that give us more information on it?
Right. I mean, so we would work with the applicant to define which services that would need to cover, and typically that would cover any city service, including police, and then any other special districts that we wanted analyzed, like CCFR, PUD, and so forth, that could also be included in there. And the comp plan policy talks about some of those other special districts being included in that type of analysis. I don't know that the city, just to cover some dead air here, while people are thinking about that, I don't know that the city has ever required a fiscal impact analysis before. Tony may have more information on that, but my overall impression is that the city has not done that. But as I said, that's pretty common in other jurisdictions in Clark County, as well as across the state of Washington. And really the purpose, again, is just to kind of give the city council an idea where the revenues and costs for this development will fall in terms of the city and other special districts providing services to the property. Some annexations are fiscally positive and other annexations are not.
Ethan, on this particular proposal, would that fiscal analysis also include, since it does lie on the urban growth boundary, would it include insight into the cost of maintaining that roadway, since parts of it would fall into county zoning?
I mean, it's possible that we could work with Clark County to analyze that and see, and the applicant would work with the city and the county to analyze that. But I mean, transportation and streets are certainly one thing that gets included in fiscal impact analyses in terms of what is the cost of maintaining streets to serving this property over the long term.
We just continue to add more and more traffic on that roadway, and now we've got increasing truck traffic as well. So I think at some point it behooves us to really look at it more in depth than we have perhaps in the past.
Mm-hmm. And the applicant would also be doing a traffic impact study at the time of subdivision to analyze, how many trips are coming and going from the project. So that would be part of the equation as well. But then the fiscal impact analysis would more specifically talk about the impacts on the fiscal impacts on the street system.
Okay. I was just thinking if we could at least get a representative from Clark County on board, might be able to get ahead of the curve in terms of any kind of road projects they may have long, may not be immediate, but may be coming down the road that we could at least be aware of and factor in.
Right.
Tony, do we have any statistics or any reports on similar sized parcels being annexed into what Liz was saying and myself?
I'd have to look. I don't know, but that's hard to say. I don't know if any of the parcels have done that before. That's something we'd have to research. I am not sure. I do know that as part of the school improvements, they have to do half street improvements or improve Lockwood Creek Road to half street improvements on the south side. So there will be some maintenance the city incurs for that. So there will be some improvements along that road on the south side. But I don't know, as far as overall fiscal responsibility, that's tough. I'd have to look and do some research on what's been done in the past. I just couldn't answer that. Maybe Jeff Swanson might have an overview of what that entails, or what that usually might be an advantage for a city to see.
Tony, I didn't expect you to know it right off the top of your head, honestly. It was just a thought after the comments being made, so I wouldn't hold your feet to the fire for that. To serve memory of something years ago that may have been done or may not have, that's pretty crazy. I appreciate you trying.
Sure.
Ethan, could you comment on the engineer for the applicant's comment earlier about as far as the fiscal analysis, given the size of the project? Do you have any thoughts on that comment with regards to the particular project?
I don't know that there's any kind of magic about a small project or a large project and whether whether a small project would be more likely to be fiscally positive. I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into those fiscal impact analyses, and each property is different based upon the number of units and the amount of road and the amount of park space that it might provide. And so I don't know that I could generalize and say that a small project is more likely to be fiscally positive than a large one, for instance.
Okay, thank you.
So are you thinking we need to do each of these individually, Ethan, or?
I think that Bronson's on the line here, but I think he would say that we would want a separate motion for each of those.
Yeah, I think that would be sort of the most logical way of handling it, rather than trying to group them and, go through different iterations of groupings. So just taking them one at a time.
All right. Mayor, I move the council require the simultaneous adoption of city zoning at the time of annexation approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the council require the simultaneous adoption of city zoning at the time of annexation and approval. Again, we'll have a roll call vote. If the clerk, please take a roll call.
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
Yes.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. So that's the motion B. So we still have A and C to do.
Mayor? I'm sorry.
Mayor, I move that the council accept the hung Lockwood notice of intent to annex parcel 209113000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the council accept the hung Lockwood notice of intent to annex parcel 209113000. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
Yes.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes.
The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. Well, now we have motion C.
Mayor, I move the council require the assumption of their share of all of the existing city indebtedness of the annexation area by the property owner at the time of approval of annexation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the council require the assumption of their share of all of the existing city indebtedness area by the property owner at the time of approval of annexation. Could I have a roll call?
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
Yes.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes.
Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, council. So we still have the optional motion to be considered by council. Option D. Okay. Hearing no motions. Move along. Okay. Thank you very much, Ethan. Great presentation.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the representatives from PLS Engineering as well. Good luck with the project. Next on the agenda under new business is authorization of a TIB application for paving La Center Road. And the city engineer will be presenting this evening, Tony Cooper. Tony?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. The action requested is to authorize a city council to apply for staff to apply for a TIB application for paving La Center Road. And this is under the Small City Preservation Project. So just a background, the TIB, Transportation Improvement Board, offers grants each year for small cities. These grants include small city arterial, small city sidewalk, and small city preservation program. The westbound lane, travel lane of the Center Road between the bridge and Timmon Road, which is approximately 2,300, has had continual wear over the last few years. In addition, about 300 linear feet of the eastbound lane, just west of the bridge, has significant wear. It's been getting worse over the years. Section of the roadway of this westbound lane is settling, and severe cracking is occurring in about 160 feet of this pavement. And I know everybody probably feels that when they drive by. This section of road needs to be reconstructed. The remaining 2190 lineal feet of pavement is not settling, and a pavement overlay will likely be adequate for repair of the surface. So TIB, as part of the Small City Preservation Project, TIB may fund the overlay portion of the repairs, but reconstruction of La Center Road, the portion of reconstruction is not eligible for funding under this program. In addition, it is recommended that an overlay of asphalt of at least 3 inches of depth be completed to allow an adequate depth of pavement surface for the traffic that uses this road. So just to let you know, when the Center Road sewer project happened, from all the way up to the freeway to the bridge, we required a depth of overlay of that lane. And then also when the tribe extended the water line, water main in La Center Road for that westbound lane, they were also required to do a 3-inch overlay. And in the past, that seems to have been worked fairly well. So, but TIB will only fund pavement overlays of 2 inches of depth as part of their preservation grant program. So if the city is successful in obtaining a grant, the city will need to pay for an additional inch of depth of asphalt along the length of repaved surface. So I've talked to TIB about this, and they know they would accept this type of application with the city funding an additional inch. So staff has estimated the cost of reconstructing the section of pavement that needs to be repaired and that can be overlaid with new pavement. The cost of the 160-foot section of reconstruction is approximately $44,000. And the additional depth, 1-inch depth of asphalt that the city would have to fund is approximately $20,000. So there's about $64,000 of cost that TIB would not allow as part of this grant. So the overall cost of the project is around $268,000, and that's with a 20% contingency. So the application to TIB would be around $204,000, and the portion the city would pay would be around $64,000. So as part of the application, TIB requires a 5% match of the cost of construction. So 5% of that $268,000 is around a little over $13,000. However, since TIB won't fund the reconstruction or the additional inch of overlay, there's about a 24% match for the city. Now, I included if you can see, but I can pan down, Sarah, I don't know if you can. There's some maps that are included with this. If you keep panning down, maps that are included with this that show the section that's overlay and the section that would be reconstructed. And there's some cross sections that go with that. But I guess that just shows the overview of it. Now it says in this report there's a cost estimate. I didn't include that with it, but that is included with the application to TIB. So one of the things that the city has is each year we get revenue from vehicle taxes. So we usually use that for the city's own pavement preservation program. And it's estimated, finance estimated it, this year they've collected around $28,000 to date. And by the end of the year, there might be around 49,000. That's an estimate. That's for 2020. So next year there might be another 43,000. That's down from where usual revenue is. Usually we get about $60,000 in that gas revenue. So, but that can be used for the match for this, so that a majority of that match cost might be able to be funded with this pavement preservation gas tax that we do receive. So I guess the ultimate cost at sea would be $64,000. But if we could get some used part of the funding that we do get for the gas tax, it would be, a smaller portion the city would have to fund. Are there any questions that anybody has?
I got a question, Tony. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
Okay, we still have large trucks traveling through La Center that can't travel the overpass on I-5. They're likely causing this damage. How long do you think this repair will last if we don't have that fix coming anytime soon? And secondly, I thought we were looking for state dollars to compensate for that since it's a state issue causing it.
Well, it's hard to say how much longer that will last. I know it's been getting, you can tell just the wear from the wheel pass has been getting worse and worse and worse. About in 2013, we actually did a project where we did do some overlay of just the wheel pass, and it has seemed to work. But there's bigger problems going on right now with that, with the settling. And to answer your question, I know Jeff Swanson, we were looking at maybe possibly getting some state funding for that. So it's possible. It's just that we haven't gotten anything, that's clear, definite, money that we can be certain that we're going to get for this. So a couple of years ago, we did actually we submitted an application to TIB for this section of roadway, and we're unsuccessful. So, I guess, part of it is basically the truck traffic that is diverted this way. There's not many trucks. I've talked to Clark County, the oversized loads about this, the section that permits those. And I think they told me before there's about 2 trucks a day. They route the La Center Road Bridge. So there are some, but there's a lot of other trucks that use this road. And so I don't know that could be attributed to that, but certainly, You know, there's a lot of traffic that uses La Center Road that doesn't live in the city. And certainly there's other options to look for. It's just that right now, this is one way to pay for it.
So Tony, did I hear you correctly that this has been done in the past, the 3-inch already?
Yes, that's what we've been doing in the past, is a 3-inch overlay. When the sewer line was Center Road, that's what they did. They ground and overlaid 3 inches, and when they extended the water main up Center Road up to the bridge, they overlaid it with 3 inches. Now, it's not to say that it wouldn't work. It's just that it's not very much depth of pavement, and so we know that 3 inches has worked in the past, and so the question is, you know, you don't want to gamble with something that you know. I mean, we know that it's worked in the past, so I would suspect it would keep by just doing
Right.
this.
Well, my concern is that, you know, we did it in the past, and if it was done during the sewer lines and stuff, it's been in the last 4 years, and we did a 3-inch then. So are we going to be having the same conversation in another 3 to 4 years?
Well, this section that was overlaid, I'm not sure if I understood your question, but the section that was overlaid for the sewer and the water line is not the section that is failing. It's the section that wasn't overlaid. So the section between Timmon Road and the bridge was not part of any construction project that was overlaid recently. And vice versa, there's 300 feet of the eastbound lane west of the La Center Road bridge that wasn't overlaid as well, because when they built the sewer line, they connected to the force main that was already built to that point. So all this section that we're doing hasn't been improved in years. It's not part of anything that was done recent.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. We definitely can't go back to gravel roads, so.
Tony, this is Randy. The eastbound section, before that, when that was county, before it was annexed in, it was collapsing, and county came out and just filled it full of asphalt, but now it's still collapsing. Do we know what the underlying cause of the collapse is? It's kind of going diagonally across the road at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it has for years, and I don't know what the problem was. It could be that there was settling going down. I mean, going on way before when they built the road, and it's hard to say. But we'll have to look. I mean, we can look at that more depth. I know part of that section that's settling now on the westbound lane is part of that section. So, you know, it needs to be opened up and reconstructed and maybe looked at that. You know, we might need to look at it in more depth. But you're right. It has always had that dip in it, and it's never been resolved. So I'm not sure
do we need to have a soils report, have a bore done in there to see if there's crummy fill or if there's water in there?
Well, that's possible. It'd be money that we'd have to put out to determine what that is.
But I don't want to keep fixing the road.
It'd be more of a long-term project. These TIB applications, I mean, you know, these TIB applications, they're due shortly, and so within a couple of days. So I mean, I guess we could postpone it and look at that in more depth. I just thought it'd be good to get some money to get most of this done.
Well, if we have a deadline coming up, I don't want to obstruct that, but I also, by the same token, don't want to keep dumping asphalt in there every 3 or 4 years. I'd like to find out what's wrong and get it fixed.
Okay. Well, we can. I mean, we can't look at that. It would require some probably a geotech to do borings and look at the underlying condition. But again, it's something that we'd have to somehow pay for in some way.
Yeah, the county knew there was a problem out there, and they fixed it by dumping more asphalt in on the eastbound side before the road was annexed into us. We inherited it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was before you were on scene. I think it was back when Bart was here.
Yeah, I do remember that before. I think it's been getting worse, but yeah, I don't think the county they didn't look at the overall problem. They didn't look at the underlying issues. So it's hard to say until you really do some borings and determine what's down there and what needs to be done for long term.
Sure, sure. I have one other question too. The recommendations says the amount of 64,000, but then up a different spot, I see the first line of your next last paragraph. Staff asked for the authorization for 268,000. Which one is correct?
Well, the application, the overall application is $68,000, but the overall cost of the project is $268,000. But the application itself that we're going to request from TIB is $204,000. What I was trying to say is the portion that the city would have to pay is $64,000 out of pocket to pay project. It's $204,000.
I see how you're reading that. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I understand it now. Thank you. Mayor, I move to authorize city staff to submit the TIB application for the small city preservation project for La Center Road for 2020 with an estimated budget amount of $64,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize city staff to submit the TIB application for the small city preservation project for the Center Road in 2020 with an estimated budget amount of $64,000. Clerk, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
Yes.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Great report, Tony. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have the update on the PBS 4th Street widening and Breezy Creek Culvert Design Project. Tony, if you could introduce the representatives from PBS.
Yes, so just to give an overview, on June 17, 2019, the city received a $1.5 million direct appropriation for a grant for design that's regulated through the Department of Commerce. And on March 2nd, PBS was selected to design the 4th Street widening and Breezy Creek Culvert Replacement Project. PBS contractor to evaluate alternatives and perform a 30% design before the final design is completed. So Greg Jellison from PBS is here to present the current status of the design and the alternatives. So I'll turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Tony. So hello, my name is Greg Jellison. I'm the principal civil engineer for PBS Engineering and Environmental, as well as the senior project manager for this project. And thanks for the opportunity to present to you today about the Breezy Creek Culvert Replacement and 4th Street Widening Project. Just to say it's a very exciting project for us, and we have a fantastic team at PBS that's working on it, along with Tony and Matt Jenkins from the city. So it's interesting. There we go. So in the presentation this evening, I'm going to be going over some project history, talk about some of the goals of the project, give a project overview of the limits of the project, and talk about our project progress so far. I'll also be discussing what the project team has been doing for community engagement on the project, and that's a lot of saying project, and what will be coming up in relation to outreach to the public. After that, I'll get into the details of the alternatives analysis that we've been working on for both the culvert replacement and for the 4th and Highland intersection. And then I'll wrap up with a discussion of what is coming up on the project schedule. So project history and goals. So as Tony mentioned, on June 17th of 2019, the City of La Center was awarded a grant of $1,470,000 through the Washington State Department of Commerce to widen 4th Street and to replace the culvert that carries Breezy Creek under 4th Street. The goals of the project include providing a fish passable replacement of the existing culvert, multimodal connectivity throughout the corridor complying with the city's complete streets ordinance, maintaining two-way traffic through the corridor during construction, and providing information to the public through community engagement. And then to complete, one of the final things is to make sure and complete the design of the project in time for construction to occur in 2021. And of course, that's pending funding availability. So as a project overview, this slide shows an overview of the project limits. The project is along 4th Street from Cedar Avenue in the west to Highland Avenue in the east. It crosses Breezy Creek in the middle of the corridor between Stone Creek Drive and the westerly access for the La Center School District's K through 8 campus. So PBS was notified of our selection. This is the overall schedule. We were notified of our selection to perform design on the project in early March of this year. One of the first items of work was to get the topographic survey completed. The site is heavily wooded and the trees didn't have their leaves yet, so we worked with the city to get an early contract approval for survey and got started on that on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. The rest of the phase one, and phase one provides for design up through 30% plans, but the rest of phase one contract was approved and we received notice to proceed on April 13th. We immediately got started with the rest of the data collection, including the cultural resources and geotechnical explorations, wetland delineations and habitat assessments, also a stream survey and analysis, and then traffic data was collected. We began our public outreach in May of this year, completed our traffic analysis and report in June, and are now completing the overall alternatives analysis for both the creek crossing and the Highland intersection. So the square on the schedule here represents where we are at today, just 4 months into the project, and we will have the alternatives analysis report completed and submitted to the city next week, and are on schedule then to have the 30% plans completed by October 2nd. So at this time, I'm going to cover our community engagement process and what has been completed so far and what is still coming up. So stakeholder interviews. Our public involvement team, led by Alicia Brazington of PBS, conducted interviews with 5 different project stakeholders, which were recommended by the city. Those included the La Center School District Superintendent, along with the Transportation Co-op of KWRL, the Fire Department, Police Department, and also private citizens. The interviews were 45 minutes long and were virtual meetings held using our team's phone system for remote meetings, where we were able to visit and share a screen showing information about the project. During the interviews, we asked the stakeholders questions about their thoughts on traffic circulation, access, pedestrian safety, and other topics of interest to them that related to the project. A summary of the interviews were then provided to the city after each interview. Project publicity. So the PBS public involvement team has also worked with city staff to get information out about the project through a project publicity campaign that involves posting project updates as progress is made. This has been through the city's website, mailers within the city utility bills, messages on the city reader board, and on social media through Facebook, Nextdoor, and Twitter. Also, there are 2 project boards installed, one on either end of the project corridor, that have the link to the city's website on them. Also, we have city council meetings like tonight. So we will also be getting the word out about the project through presentations like this one today at city council meetings. And then also through virtual open houses in the future. As you know, due to COVID-19, we will be hosting a virtual open house instead of one in person during the next phase of the project. Normally, obviously, we do them in person, but just not able to do that at this point. The virtual open house will be a brief video combining drone footage, film, photos, maps, and renderings, and a voiceover explaining the project. This is a great way to explain the project when in-person attendance is inadvisable or just not even allowed. And it is also available 24/7 to the community. It would include space for people's comments and questions via a form online with responses to their questions provided within a few days. Information about the virtual open house would be posted to the city's website and publicized on social media and other city communications. So moving on to the alternatives analysis and project design. So there are two areas of the project with alternatives analysis being completed, and they are independent of each other. The alternative that gets selected for replacing the culvert does not impact what alternative gets selected for the intersection improvement at 4th and Highland, and vice versa. There are also planned roadway improvements that will be happening along the corridor independent of these alternatives and are based on the traffic analysis and required lane configurations along the corridor. So here's some of the existing conditions of 4th Street and where Breezy Creek crosses under it. This slide shows at the upstream end of the culvert, it's the north side of 4th Street. In this area, the roadway is approximately 35 feet above the creek. And then this is the existing conditions downstream. And here we see the outlet or downstream end of the culvert, and the roadway is approximately 40 feet above the creek. You can also see a pipe that comes down the embankment on the right that is a stormwater discharge from the stormwater collection that occurs on 4th Street up near the Westerly School access drive. The project team is reviewing two different alternatives for constructing a fish passable structure to carry Breezy Creek under 4th Street. One is a precast concrete box culvert to replace this existing culvert, and the other is a bridge. Both alternatives can be constructed to meet the fish passage requirements, as well as maintain two-way traffic on 4th Street during construction, which is obviously key. So here is a graphic showing the layout of the box culvert option. And this option is to replace the existing culvert with a larger precast concrete arch box culvert with an open bottom. This will provide the necessary width and height to meet the minimum fish passage requirements and is usually a very economical solution for these types of projects. As we've discussed, one of the goals, and actually it is really a requirement, is to maintain two-way traffic during construction. This requires a staged construction approach, and in our research and design process, we have determined that due to the depth of the culvert and the limitations on closing the road, the most economical approach to accomplish this with the box culvert option is to install a temporary bypass bridge as part of the staging, along with extensive temporary retaining walls. This causes the box culvert to be significantly more expensive than it normally would be, and also increases the overall footprint and length of the culvert to accommodate the stage construction. Normally, if we were able to completely close 4th Street and just get in there, dig down, replace things, a box culvert would definitely be less expensive than a bridge. But that is not the case. So the other option here is a bridge option. The bridge option also requires some temporary retaining walls and stage construction to maintain traffic, but doesn't require as much width and more easily accommodates the staging of utility relocations. It also provides a better opening for the creek and even can accommodate a pedestrian trail under the bridge if desired. So subsequent to us completing this presentation materials, we have finished our alternatives analysis scoring and actually presented to city staff yesterday our recommendations. So I'm gonna give you a preview because the report is coming next Tuesday, the full report. But our recommendation here for the creek crossing is actually a bridge option. So it will actually cost approximately $900,000 less than the culvert. It'll take less time to construct, stage, and have a smaller project impact within the creek. Like I said, the full alternatives analysis report will be made available next week, and you will be able to review the details behind this decision and recommendation if you so choose. So moving on to the intersection alternatives, and this would be at Highland and 4th at the far east end of the project, and Ivy Avenue, which comes as the access from the school.
Can I ask a question about the bridge?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Would the bridge be precast and lifted into place, or would it be built on site?
The girders would be precast and brought to the site, and the deck itself would probably be cast.
Okay. So I'm just concerned about the time
Sure.
involved.
No, absolutely. It would definitely be a fast. The girders would be constructed off-site, and once that was ready, you would come in and bring them, and it would be done in 2 stages. You would build, you would shift traffic to the south. In both options, actually, you would do this, the culvert or the bridge. You would shift traffic as far possible to the south, construct, a temporary bridge with the culvert option, or the new bridge, the north half of the bridge in the bridge option alternative, shift traffic to the north, construct the south half, and then be able to open it up.
Sure.
So
how long would
it's a staged option.
How long are the girders?
I believe they 120 feet, 5 inches is the full length of the bridge, so about 120 feet. So small dimension on this. We talked about that actually in our meeting just last week to make sure that we can get through the roundabout. That would be the existing roundabout, would be the restriction. But these types of girders come with on a trailer that has a driver under the rear steer driver.
Yeah,
and so we think it shouldn't be a problem, but we are definitely going to check that and make sure.
Okay, thank you.
That's a very good question. I'm glad I thought about it before.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the bridge before I move on? Okay. So on the intersection alternatives, moving on to the intersection, the first option is to not make any improvements at all to the intersection and to leave it as is, as a 2-way stop controlled intersection with stop signs on the north and south legs. That would be on Highland and Ivy. The new street improvements would stop to the west of the intersection. As you can see, we have a match point there where we'd be matching into the existing street and sidewalk improvements. Those were completed several years ago with the previous intersection improvements. So there are some existing site distance concerns at the intersection that can still be resolved, even if we're not doing reconstruction of the intersection at all. However, this fix would not fix the cause of a past accident where a pedestrian was hit. In that situation, a school bus was in the 4th Street left turn lane waiting to turn left and go north on Highland. The bus was waiting for a pedestrian actually that was crossing 4th Street from north to south. And another car that was traveling eastbound that was not required to stop at the intersection did not see that pedestrian due to the bus blocking the view and struck the pedestrian as they walked across. So this would obviously not solve that issue even if we fix some of the other site distance problems. So we also briefly looked at a 4-way stop control intersection here, but the traffic volumes were definitely too high and it would generate a level of service F or failure conditions and some very long queues on the westbound approach during the AM peak hour. So the signalized intersection. So this was the second alternative we looked at here. It's to install a traffic signal at the intersection. This would not require any geometric change or reconstruction for lane configurations. When the intersection was reconstructed several years ago, it was built to accommodate a future traffic signal. So all approaches would, on this, after analysis, all approaches would operate at level of service A or B, and the signal timing could be optimized to adjust accordingly for the peak school traffic. There would be some minor reconstruction necessary to upgrade some of the ramps to be ADA compliant for the signal. And the signal pole bases may require a small amount of additional right-of-way. And you can see those in the side. I promise the sidewalks will not be orange when they're built. It's just to help spot them in the exhibit right now. That is a question I get sometimes. Are the sidewalks going to be orange? No. So the last alternative we looked at for the intersection improvement was to install a roundabout. And you guys are familiar with roundabouts, but this would require a full reconstruction of the intersection with some major impacts to some private property as well as school district property. The roundabout also would operate at level of service A or B on all legs and would provide improved safety and lower long-term maintenance costs than a traffic signal. However, the construction cost is significantly higher than the signalized alternative, and the overall project footprint impact is significantly more than the signalized option. Now, one thing I will say, if this intersection had not been reconstructed previously to accommodate a signal, and was still like a 2-lane road and more like an old county road, the two options would be much more in line with each other. But because it was already set up for a signal, the signalized option is much less expensive. So again, as I mentioned before, we've completed our review and scoring for the intersection alternatives and presented our recommendations for the intersection improvement to city staff yesterday. At this time, our recommendation is to upgrade the intersection by installing a new traffic signal and then, of course, replacing the necessary ADA ramps. This improvement provides the best value by drastically improving the traffic congestion and being significantly less expensive and less impactful on public and private property than the roundabout alternative. Again, the full alternatives analysis report will be made available next week. So any questions on the intersection options?
When you did the traffic on your timeline that you had earlier, you said you did the traffic survey, I think it was June 22nd?
We completed our report in June.
Yeah. How did you get a good traffic count if the school was shut down?
Well, we didn't. So what we did do, however, was we happened to be the firm that did the traffic analysis for the new school to the east of this site. And so we already had traffic counts from late in 2018 of all of these intersections. Now, normally you would want to do some updated counts, but yeah, it just, with school not operating, with people working from home, like myself and many of you, we could not get valid counts. And so we were fortunate that we had recent counts in hand already, and we're able to use those and extrapolate that data. So that was
a
very
good answer.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to have done that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You bet. So next steps. So now, what next? So here we are, City Council presentation. So next, as I mentioned, we're going to be completing our alternatives analysis report and submitting it to the city next Tuesday, the 18th. Then the plan is to proceed with the recommended alternatives and prepare 30% plans that will be completed and submitted to the city by October 2nd. So concurrently with the preparation of the 30% plans, we will prepare a scope and budget for a contract amendment to complete phase 2 of the design. We'll be working, and just so you understand, phase 2 takes us from where we're at 30% and proceeds on through to completion of final plans ready for construction. So we're going to be working with city staff on this scope and budget update and plan to have it ready for approval during the September 23rd City Council meeting, so we don't have any gap on our schedule, and we have the ability to keep going on design immediately after the 30% plan submittal. Within that phase 2, as I mentioned, we're going to be taking the final plans ready for construction. It will also include the right-of-way acquisition process and completion of the environmental permitting that will be required for it. So schedule-wise, we are planning to have all this work completed by May of 2021 and be, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be ready to go to construction. However, construction funds may not be available at that time, and we will support the city in pursuit of those funds and be ready to support the city through the construction process when funds are available. So thank you. Again, thanks so much for your time. And are there any other questions that myself or Tony can help you with?
I had a question about Stone Creek Drive and East 4th, west of Stone Creek Drive. Number one, are there going to be any changes to East 4th Street, I guess, west of the new bridge, like sidewalks, bike traffic? And then the second question is, are we doing anything with the traffic coming down Stone Creek Drive, getting onto 4th in either direction?
So to answer your question on 4th Street, we're going to be putting in bike lanes through the entire corridor. And we also will be putting sidewalks on both sides of the street through the entire corridor. As far in starting on the east side of the Cedar Avenue intersection near the Chevron station. As far as Stone Creek Drive, the intersection itself, you can see on this slide here, the intersection will be improved, and you can see where we're anticipating our limits going up Stone Creek. And that's because of some of the elevation and grade changes with the bridge construction and the profile to match the intersection. So there will be some upgrades to that intersection. The biggest change will be a left turn lane for eastbound 4th Street to turn left onto Stone Creek Drive. it's not a huge need as far as traffic capacity or traffic. It's not necessarily warranted traffic wise, because people can turn left at Cedar or even Aspen and come in, I believe, on 5th Street to this neighborhood. And I think people do that when traffic is backed up because of school. However, we needed the width anyway for the 3-lane facility, and we needed to maintain that width through the creek crossing to accommodate the staging of construction. So we had the width, and it made sense to go ahead, and we discussed this with Tony, to go ahead and include a left turn pocket, a minimal length left turn pocket there. So that is a change that you will see. It doesn't exist today. Did that answer your question?
Well, I'm looking at these yellow lines here at the school entrance. Is that a barrier, or is that just paint?
At this point, that's paint, striping.
Because there is an issue with westbound traffic on 4th illegally turning into the school at that point.
Yeah, we've talked with the school district, and they definitely do not want to be allowing the left turns into the site. So we'll be working with them to continue to, I believe right now there's what you call candlesticks in that area that are blocking the traffic. So we'll plan to work on that. There is a potential we could put up a median barrier there, like a curb. We've talked with the fire department and about that, and they're okay with that as long as we can maintain the ability for them to go over it if they had to. So it needed to be a mountable curb. So, so we'll be working through those details. But yeah, they want to let the left.
Yeah, that's a big obstacle problem in the morning.
Sure, absolutely.
Parents won't go in for some reason. They won't go into the other entrance on the east end of the school. They like that one, the one that goes to the front door.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
no, and yeah, and the school district was our first stakeholder interview. We had a long conversation with the superintendent and with also the representative from KWRL regarding the operation of their parent drop off and the school buses and how they come in and out of the site.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Jellison this evening? Well, very well done, Mr. Jellison. I really appreciate your update. Exciting project and desperately needed. So we really appreciate all your hard work and efforts.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a fun project, and Tony and the team are great to work with at the city. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Now, if I can figure out how to give this back.
Okay, next on the agenda this evening is we have a government surplus vehicle resolution, and Chief Day will be presenting this evening.
Mayor, Council, in front of you, you have resolution number 453. It's a resolution of the City of La Center declaring certain property as surplus and authorizing its disposal. Whereas the city has purchased the real property and equipment listed on attached Exhibit A, and whereas the property and equipment on Exhibit A is surplus to the needs of the city, as outlined in the City of La Center surplus property policy, sections 4.2 and section 5. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this equipment property described in the attached Exhibit A is declared surplus to the needs of the city. Staff is instructed to sell the items for the best available price equal to the assessed appraised value on record of adequately disposing of the items. It does not sell or is not in condition for resale. The City of Cottage Grove, Oregon has made an offer of $8,500 for the purchase of items as outlined in Exhibit A, and a recommendation from staff to accept the offer and transfer title said vehicle to the City of Cottage Grove. So this is involving our 2014 Chevrolet Tahoe, purchased back in 2014. That's being surplused, and it was demarked, and We had purchased another Tahoe to replace that vehicle at the beginning of this year. And so it's currently down at Wireworks, or it was the equipment was removed from it or partially removed from it. And Cottage Grove is in need of a vehicle, and Greg from Wireworks assisted us in the sale of this vehicle or potential sale of it. And originally I had a higher number on the vehicle, but this is the best offer that we got at this point from Cottage Grove for the sale. That'll meet their needs. So my recommendation is that it's probably the best we're going to get for the vehicle. It's got about 75,000 miles on it currently. And it, of course, you know, has had some issues since it is a police vehicle. So it's a good opportunity for the city.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions, Council, for the Chief?
What's the blue book on it, Chief?
Well, in real life, the Blue Book is around, depending on fair market value for retail for a privately owned vehicle. Since the vehicle's not in that condition, if we were to put it into auction, it can go for considerably less than that. So that's why I'm thinking $8,500 is a fair price. That vehicle was involved in an accident, so it had been it had some work done to it. Plus, it's got the holes and everything else in it. So if it was going to auction for the light bar and all that, we'd have to spend the money in getting things removed from the vehicle the rest of the way. So it would cost us some more money to get the rest of the equipment removed from the vehicle and put the civilian seats back in it and the door panels and things like that back on it to resell it at auction anyhow.
Okay.
And we don't need this anywhere else in the city, a vehicle like this for employees or such?
That I am not aware of. I haven't, since they did purchase vehicles for public works or community development, I didn't see that there's a need, but I haven't reached out to the rest of the city at this point.
I think this is the best thing to do with this because, as the chief said, it's full of holes from equipment being mounted in there. And I agree. I think it would cost us more money to try to fix this thing and put it in the retail market through the auction. Mayor, I propose that we adopt Resolution 453, resolution of the City of La Center declaring certain property as surplus and authorizing it as disposal as a 2014 Tahoe, a Chevy Tahoe for $8,500 to the City of Cottage Grove, Oregon.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to sell the 2014 Chevy Tahoe to the City of Cottage Grove, Oregon for $8,500, Resolution 453. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
No.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes.
The resolution is approved by vote of 4-1. Thank you, Council, and thanks, Chief, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda is adjournment. If I could get a motion for adjournment. Adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Great job, staff. appreciate everybody's hard work.